Hi everyone, and welcome again to my audiovisual channel. I'm Gabriela Handal, a draftsman and the host of the show, A Conversation About Art. During each episode, I look for the meaning of art and beauty through conversations with colleagues in different artistic fields. Today, I bring you episode 44, and I will have this conversation with artist David Michael Wright. If you'd like to support this podcast, liking and sharing this video is a great way to do it, and so is subscribing to my audiovisual channel. These forms of support are immediate and have no additional cost. If you want to support the podcast with money, that is also welcome. And you can do so by purchasing my drawings directly from my website, or letting me know if you're interested in a drawing by inboxing me on Instagram. Also, buying stuff I make from eBay, buying prints of my drawings, or leaving a tip. The links for these things are in the show notes. Thank you very much for watching and or listening, and enjoy the episode. Okay, it's going. So David Michael Wright, welcome to my podcast, A Conversation About Art. You are episode 44. Please tell our listeners and viewers who you are and what you do.
My name is David Michael Wright. I'm an artist. I draw crazy monsters and things like that.
Okay.
Been sort of drawing and painting and creating things since they set me off at primary school with potato prints and things. Never stopped really. Just progressed. I've just been basically, as the years have passed, just trying to figure out, how to apply it, what fits with me, that kind of thing. Pursued, every opportunity to pursue something creative throughout the sort of formal school structure. I would take that avenue. So, I don't know, every opportunity, it'd be woodwork or something to do with, making things. And then sort of you get to age 11 and people start saying, what do you want to do as a job, and all this kind of thing. And I was sort of, I don't know really, I like drawing and things like that. And they said, you want to be a graphic designer then? I was like, is that drawing? And they were sort of, yeah, that's drawing. So I was like, right, okay, I'll do that. And then sort of, you finish school, secondary school, onto college. Studied graphic design, and quickly within the first year I realized, no, this isn't for me. It was, graphic design at the time was the early days of Photoshop, but it was pretty much composing, which is what graphic design is, but I didn't realize it at the time, composing pictorial elements and text into a sort of this a composition, a nice format. I thought, no, I want to draw, I want to create crazy things. And so I kind of took a sidestep over to fine art. And that was kind of the other way around. At the time, it was sort of express yourself, throw paint everywhere and just roll around in it and make sticks and do all sorts of bad stuff. And I was like, no, I want to paint like, the old masters like Rembrandt. I want to learn how to do that. And so but at this point, I'd kind of signed up for the degree, just locally, and I moved on to university because I thought, yeah, this is warm, this is getting there. Didn't have a clue really, but they sort of, about maybe 6 weeks in, I realised they were sort of, no, we don't teach that, we don't. I was sort of flipping out what we're going to do now then with this three-year course. So what I ended up doing was, one of the teachers, the lead guy, used to get on really well with him, and he knew his stuff. He actually did have a background in photography and art and things like that. He knew the technical skills. So I used to go down the library and just read every sort of technique book that I could find and discuss things with him. Sort of, what about this? What about depth of field? What about? And we'd have these really long conversations, and I sort of, he kind of gave me the freedom to more or less do what I wanted with the course. So there was life drawing at the time, which was great, so I doubled up on that subject. There was painting, so I doubled up on that. I found the experience, it was good from it gave me the time to learn, and I think it clicked at that point with me that you don't need a formal structure. You don't need a teacher in front of you to learn. You kind of just go out there and find the information yourself. Once that clicked, I was just sort of away. But yeah, the frustration with me and fine art was that, you know, the people that were doing more abstract things, which they seemed to be able to do quite rapidly, you know, you could take a canvas and do a few coloured handprints on it, throw things around like crazy, and then come up with some incredible explanation of what, you know, what it is. And these guys would be getting the high marks, and then there'd sort of be me struggling to learn more realistic traditional drawing. And it's clear when you're doing that, the errors, it's like, oh, you've got the proportions wrong, you know, the head's too arms, the fingers are wonky. And so you get lower marks for that, and it might have taken you, you know, the best part of 2 weeks to a month to do one image, whereas the other guys on the same course were blasting out these abstract things, which is great. I mean, I have nothing against all that, but there was sort of the structure of the course didn't, you know, he was fighting all the time. But I kind of like that in hindsight, because I learned a lot through the process of struggling. But yeah, then I left. Along this path, I started to learn about illustration as a possibility. I always liked, you know, from being very young, I liked, you know, 80s video, VHS cover artwork, all the sort of traditional.
Yeah, because those were made by hand.
Yeah, exactly.
They were drawn and painted. Yeah,
up until about the mid-90s, where Photoshop kind of made there's a cutoff point where I think it was sort of early 90s to mid-90s, where it went from all the movie posters were kind of airbrush and acrylic and, you know, really crazy, impressive pieces of artwork to more or less photo montage on Photoshop, and design studios were doing that, as I understand it. But yeah, that was the stuff that influenced me, and some of the like Games Workshop and you know, the fantasy stuff that appealed to me as well. At school, I met a guy that was into all that. He kind of, you know, showing me all this stuff, and I loved the artwork. Always loved the imagery, so that was there. And then when I left college, I thought, well, these people do it for a living, so it must be possible. So I just started, you know, going down the illustration path, which was a close fit. It kind of, yeah, as I sort of did the usual email about 200 companies, you get about 50 replies. About 50 replies, you might get 10 that are serious. Of that 10, you might get 5 that turn into jobs. And you just, you know, you start those, you do your best, and you grow from there. But yeah, I did that for about 10 years after my degree. And
illustration?
I still do a little illustration now and commissions and things. But I got to a point where I was just frustrated that, you know, I felt like I'd got ideas of my own that I wanted to, you know, create and do. And you were always waiting for somebody to give you the opportunity to do that. I mean, that's the nature of paid work. You know, you've got the skills. Somebody else employs you to do a specific job. They give you the job description. You do it. You get paid. That's the deal. And there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, there's this sort of a split in me that just wanted to go crazy and do my own thing. Yeah. So there's a point where I just got, I cannot just keep doing this, you know, passing the years doing this, grinding away, and not do my own thing as well. I've got to do my own thing, if at least on the side, you know, get something going. I was always been a fan of Clive Barker. It's just the way he does everything. Just the guy, all the usuals for dark art. But yeah, I was reading a book one night by Clive Barker. It was called Illustrator, and it was just basically a book, and in that book he's having a conversation about his attitudes and thoughts on artwork. And it was almost like an epiphany. It was like, you don't need permission. You can just do your own thing. Just go for it. Just do it. And from that day, it was just like, I was doing things I'd never done. Like with the illustration, you've got a really logical sort of formulaic approach, which is necessary because you can't be wild with us. You know, you've got the brief, you've got to structure it, you've got the elements, you've got to compose the elements, you've got to research the elements, you've got to, you know, it's all very logical. And you build an image, you construct an image, much like a building. And I just wanted to go crazy, so the sort of fine art side started to kick in. The things I picked up sort of peripherally from doing fine art, I thought, yeah, let's get some ink. Let's just throw some ink around and see what I can find in this. And it just, yeah, it was just brilliant. I love that approach now. It's like I can do the logical, and I enjoy doing that constructive approach, that sort of designed approach. But more than anything, I just love the sort of, you know, it's kind of like self-discovery. It's like when you're looking at you look at clouds, you try and see what you can. Oh, there's a dog there. That's a dragon. You know, this kind of thing. It's kind of the same approach. You create chaos in whatever way. You know, create an abstract pattern, throw some ink around, spray it, sponge it, whatever. Create a kind of a mess, and then you look into that and you start to see things. And it's kind of that's the I think that makes it more personal, and it's also more sort of self-exploratory, and you kind of it's almost like fishing within yourself, because someone else could look at that same pattern, see completely different things relating to their own, you know, personality and life experience and all this stuff. And yeah, it's just great. So I've just been doing that since that point, and people seem to like it.
Indeed.
You know, Instagram's been steadily building. I've been selling a few, which has been nice, complementing, you know, commissions and illustration work. That's kind of where I am at the moment. Just rolling along.
Okay, so you said you still do like hired illustration work.
Yeah, still do a little. Yeah, commissions.
Okay.
Got a couple of jobs on at the moment.
I'm sorry?
I've got a couple of jobs on at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm working alongside other things.
Okay, so you were musing a little bit a second ago about how illustration is kind of more formulaic in a way. So yeah, I guess I would like it if you went a little bit more into what is the difference between illustration and fine art in your opinion? From your experience, you know?
Yeah, I think it's just in terms of the quality of artwork. I mean, when you look at illustration as relating to, well, how can I approach this one? I don't think in terms of quality, well, it depends on the artist that you're comparing, but you know, there's extremely high quality illustrators and fine artists. In terms of the definitions, I suppose illustration's more commercial. You're an illustrator, and you know, usually that's relating to text. You know, a book is being produced or some written text, and you're given a section to illustrate. You're illustrating, you're bringing it to life. It's sort of complementary, and but I think with the fine art, as I understand it, fine art as we know it now, the sort of modern art galleries and all this kind of thing, and the kind of idea of, I may be wrong with this, but this is my take on it. The sort of romanticized idea of an artist, you know, starving artist, and you know, all this kind of thing. As I understand it, that's only been a brief sort of viewpoint, quite a modern take on an artist. Prior to that, being an artist was just like being a blacksmith or you know, this or that. It was just a functionary. You know, you want to get your portrait painted, you go to an artist, commission him. That's about it, really. You know, you had sort of almost was it Rubens that used to have a team? You know, a team of artists. They'd all be signed Rubens, but you'd have a guy grinding the paint, a guy transfers. So these are sort of a workforce that all went under the name of Rubens, so you could kind of produce it. Yeah, I think with a fine art, it's a modern definition, isn't it? I don't know.
Indeed.
Yeah. If you feel that you fit under that definition, then great.
Yeah. No, I guess I just wonder what the difference might be, because I'm not sure if you perceive this same thing, but I have the perception from school, like from when I was in school, also like earning an art degree. Teachers would, when we were getting critiques from teachers, they would use the term illustrative. And outside of school, I don't know why I sort of had the perception that somehow it's inferior, almost, in a way, in terms of, oh, it's not fine art. It's like there's like something that I don't quite know. I mean, that's not what I think necessarily about illustration. I think illustration is great.
Yeah, me too.
And obviously it's it has I don't know, it obviously it has its place in the visual arts world, as it well should. I also associated with like book covers and like music album covers, and perhaps now that I mentioned those two things, perhaps it has something to do with effectively illustrating an idea, like a specific idea. Because like in the case of a book cover, it's kind of like illustrating some information that is within the book. It's like something about the story within the book, for example. And for like an album cover for music, it's illustrating like perhaps the feeling of the album, or something like that. Whereas I suppose fine art isn't strictly associated with that, even though there's fine art that's probably inspired by a book or inspired by music. Do you see what I'm saying? Whereas go ahead. Sorry. Please tell me what you think about that.
It's like a context, isn't it? It's the context, and illustration is different purposes, but essentially the product is no different. It's like if you say an illustrator is creating artwork for a set purpose, a commercial purpose. A fine artist is sort of ostensibly creating artwork for themselves, though it's going to be viewed in a gallery context. But they're both creating artwork with slightly different motivations, but ultimately two pieces of, I mean, if you gauge things on quality, two pieces of high quality artwork are being produced. If you took those contexts away and asked people to sort of blind test which is fine art, which is illustration, I think they would struggle.
I think so too.
Art is art, different contexts, different purposes. But I tell you what I didn't like about fine art while I was doing it. A similar thing to what you just mentioned there. There is like I'm sure it's not like this with all people, but there is like an underlying snobbery there, like an elitist sort of. We're better, and I think I didn't like the whole. It's not what you know, it's who you know sort of thing. If you got on with the right gallery owners and you sort of, basically sucked up to people, you'd get your work shown. And if you weren't prepared to do that, then you'd struggle. I mean, that's my personal experience. I sort of pushed against that, and that's kind of what threw me more in the commercial. It's kind of it's. I like the traditional stuff, so I like skill and craftsmanship and hard work and effort, and I think it's frustrating in the fine art sphere sort of world, because it kind of doesn't apply. You could get a guy that's what's the name of the guy? The guy that put a shark in liquid and
Damien Hirst.
Yeah, Jackson Pollock just splattering, and then you've got the other guy that's doing the incredibly realistic stuff. And it's all kind of thrown into the same world. Whereas, so to me, coming from sort of that skill merit sort of thing, it just fries my brain. But when you go into the sort of commercial world, sort of with
Commercial
illustration.
world of art.
Well, I mean like the illustration part.
Yeah.
You're as good as you're as good as. You do your best, and
Yeah.
you produce something, and the market judges it. In a way, it's like if you're good at what you do, you'll do well. So there is like there's a meritocracy there to a degree. If you work hard and you produce good work, you will do well. Whereas in the fine art world, that's not necessarily the case. You could, they're just not fit. Or it seems that way anyway. I don't know if there's any truth in that.
Yeah, I can see some of that. That's I mean, I think there might be a degree of that in every field.
Yeah.
In the sense of, what?
Just people have different tastes,
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of variables that determine whether you'll get into a gallery or whether whomever is going to buy your work.
Yeah.
Your artistic work. And I don't know, it's not that dissimilar in a way from what the example that you gave earlier about how you sent work to like 200 people that might have been looking for illustration artists. And then maybe 50 of them get back to you, and then like 50% of those maybe work, but then 10% is the ones that actually hire you. I would argue that it's similar to that in the fine art world, because it's like, before the pandemic started, I was showing work pretty consistently, not with one specific gallery or anything, just group shows. Yeah. I was showing consistently, meaning that I had work somewhere every month. And it's like, it's not that dissimilar from just showing the work to whomever is asking for anything that looks like art. And then you show them the thing, and then they're like, oh, maybe they're interested in it. It's like similarly like the percentages, it's like you have to reach out undetermined amount of times to get something in return a very small amount of times. And it's I don't know, I'm sure some of it, of course some of it is elitism, because I don't know, I feel like there is some of that just everywhere in every field that you might go to. I think also the idea of elitism gets kind of conflated with how difficult it is to show in a gallery or to get any kind of work, because one has to put in so much effort, in the sense that you have to apply to very many things before you're actually able to get into one. And that's obviously not elitism. It's like nobody is actually obligated to show your work. It has to, like you were saying, it has to click between the curator seeing the work, and they're like, oh, okay, so then this will fit into the show that I'm trying to make, or something like that. It's a combination of stuff.
Well, I've noticed, with the work I've been doing for myself, I've had a few group shows myself coming along, which has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd never realized that there was a sort of galleries wanting to show dark art sort of things, monsters and crazy stuff, and there's people out there running the galleries that absolutely love it.
Of course.
So there's context now. I think this was sort of, maybe things have changed. I think the internet's opened things up.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's just anybody can more or less do anything now. What were the traditional gatekeepers? The same. I understand it's the same in the publishing field. There was no unsolicited publication, so you'd have to go through an agent and this kind of thing. Incredibly difficult to get just your work initially seen by somebody, and these people were the people that would decide whether they would give you a chance or not. And I think it was a similar sort of setting with the fine art galleries, but now with the internet, there's just endless possibilities. It's just really. It's all down to your own energy and effort, isn't it, really?
Yeah, also goes down. It also, I think, goes down to to how willing the person is to put in a lot of work into it as well. Because it's like, for example, what could, maybe somebody would argue is effectively gatekeeping. It's like, now you don't have to mail for example, like a press package or something to galleries.
Yeah.
But then in that case, if you choose, and like now, that's still an option if somebody is into that. But like, now you have social media platforms, and like you don't even strictly need a website, for example. Like you still have the website, but it's like if you have a social media page, whether it be Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, any of those things, and you post there consistently, and you work on making your work and everything, and still work the social media platforms, you're gonna get attention on your work, which is it's like it's definitely many other options added to the pool of things that were there and are still there available.
Yeah,
pretty great.
Exactly. It's just brilliant, really. I mean, you can build your own audience. You don't need to go through a middleman to have access to an audience, although you can do that still. People have different audiences, and if what you're doing complements what they're doing, you're exposed to their audience. But all by yourself, you can just, like you say, be consistent, produce your work, show it to people. And with the social media structure, you attract it's a bit like a filter as well, isn't it? But you gradually attract the kind of people that love what you do.
Indeed.
And it's kind of like, I mean, I try not to, be lifted up or dropped down by the opinions of others. But I love the, you're building this list. When you get nice comments about things, it's great, isn't it? What you're doing. It's like you're all sat in usually artists are by themselves working away, not really getting a lot of feedback on what they're doing. But now with the internet, you just, you can show it midway, how they do work in progress, what do you think to this, get people's ideas, it's great. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty awesome. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Wright, what is art in your opinion?
What is art? I wrote some notes. I had a thought to think about that. Art is a slippery word. It's a container
really.
that means lots of different things to different people. You can sort of go down the sort of librarian's route.
Librarian route?
Yeah, categories. Okay. If you had a box that said art labelled on it, what would you put in that box? It'd sort of be, sculpture, painting, this, that, all the various different art forms. Very, very sort of, that's the sort of, like the librarian's approach, tag it, label it. But then you've got the more subjective sort of definition. And to me, it becomes more personal, doesn't it? What do you think art is? That kind of thing. Everybody's got their own different view. You sort of think art, you break the word down, art, artist, artful, artistry, which to me kind of implies skill, some kind of skill. I think on top of that you've got the concept, an individuality, individual expression. I think to me, my view on it is that it goes much broader than that. It's sort of like entire way of life. Like it's not it. Yeah, it's like in life. I think we make marks on things, and things make marks on us. And I think when you become aware of that, and you try to live more consciously with that in mind, you are on some level an artist, creating their own world and their own impact on right down to just simple conversations with people. You're making little marks, little impressions here and there, and all these things accumulate into what you're on this planet for a limited amount of time, and you make these marks, and that's in a way your artwork. So I think there's like a psychological aspect to it as well, in the the expression, catharsis, exploring yourself, your own sort of inner labyrinth. I mean, the process I described earlier, the way I do it, sort of creating chaos, looking into clouds, seeing what you can find. I call that going fishing, because I never know what I'm going to catch. That's what's exciting about it. I don't know what I'm going to draw. I just start, and the image develops, and maybe I'll sort of see something, and then it'll become more of a logical process to bring the thing out. But initially, I have no idea, and that's exciting. And I think that you end up with more original things through going that route, as opposed to like the spider graph route. Like, you know, when you break things down, you sort of, I'm trying to think of an example. So you'd write, I don't know, like from the illustration, dungeon, whatever. So write dragon in a box, and then you go, oh, wings, scales, this, that, and there's only so many limited things in your mind that you can kind of like shoot off, and these are all things that you've accumulated as you've gone along, but they're limiting in a way. But when you just go for the chaos and look into it and try and bring order to it, see what you can see, you come out with things that I think would be very difficult to logically construct. You surprise yourself. It's like, oh wow, that looks like a weird eye coming out of that. I would have never thought of placing it that way. It's not the normal way to. It's things like this. You just kind of. It's like jazz music. You learn your instrument. You become as skilled as you possibly can at your instrument. You know it back to front, but then there's a point where you just play. You just let loose, go with the flow, bounce off things that are coming, and you just kind of go with it. And I think that's when art's at its best. What else have I got down? Yeah, I've written, we are the conscious curators and creators of our lives, trying to chip away at what materials with what materials we have available, and what skill we can muster to try and realize our imagined ideals. I think you either do that, or you're unconsciously swept along by, people, forces of others basically trying to do the same thing. It's like sheep and shepherds, tribes. We're all tribal. Like I love the William Blake quote. I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's.
Wait, what is the quote again? Sorry, would you repeat it?
Yeah, William Blake, he said, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I think he's followed that up with, I will not reason and compare my businesses to create. But essentially, yeah, it's kind of like that tribal thing. I think you've got to follow your own path, or you'll end up sort of getting swept along by the paths of others, which may not be a good or a bad thing, but it does take you away from your own direction.
Okay.
But yeah, what else have I got? Self-realization of your potential, inspiration. You're searching. It's a way of sort of finding yourself in a way through the medium of art. You sort of discover yourself as you go along, and I think through doing that, you inspire in a way. And when I was a kid, up to this day, people inspire me. You're flicking through Instagram, you see some great artwork, and it just fires you up. It's like we're all doing our own thing, but we're all collectively just adding little flames to this giant fire. Just, you know what I mean? It's just, it's amazing. I mean, when you scroll through Instagram, there's just all these individual brilliant takes on everything, and it just fires you up. You just want to go do it, and then you're kind of adding to that. And I think that's just a fantastic thing. I think that's an incredibly positive thing, even if you're not an artist. I mean, I think everybody's an artist based on what I said earlier, to some degree, whether they realize it or not. They may be sort of wreaking havoc unconsciously, but yeah. The world without art would be a pretty dull, boring, grey place, wouldn't it? When people relax they usually turn to something that has some art context. You know, music, even TV programs, movies, things like that. They're all art to some degree.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I like the things you said a lot, and what you were saying about the chaos, especially called my attention. I mean, it's not, you know, you mentioned it earlier in the conversation, but it called my attention as part of the definition of art, as part of your own opinion of what art is. Especially because you also mentioned the part about, like, when you play jazz, that you learn how to play your instruments. I mean, when you play jazz, that you learn how to play your instruments, you learn how they work, you learn what they can do, and then you're just playing music. So similarly, similarly to also what you were talking about when you were studying art, that what you wanted, like, you were looking for this specific grid, kind of like a specific way of doing things, like you were, you know, the masters, you know, the figure perspective, atmospheric perspective, like this kind of stuff. Like, those are rules, those are limitations, right? So it's like this relationship between the two when you're making, I mean, in your case specifically, based on your description, it's that relationship between the two, in the sense that you're looking into a chaotic surface and seeing what you can find via the tools that you were given, that you learned. And I just really like that a lot. It reminds me of well, he's a lecturer now. His name is Jordan Peterson, and that he says that. I
love that guy.
Yeah, if you've ever heard him talking about art and artists and creativity, that's exactly what he says is the importance of artists. He says that artists go into the unknown, which is chaos, and they civilize it so that other people can go into it. And it's like, that gives me goosebumps a little bit, because it's like, that's effectively it. It's like, you know, you're going on what is basically a search, because you're going into the chaos to see what you can find. You're looking for something, right? So it's like you also said, as part of your definition of art, that you're exploring yourself, or you're exploring your surroundings, and you're looking for something. You just curiosity. You see what you you're seeing what you can find, you know. So that I really liked those aspects of your thoughts on art a lot.
I think when I first started this, I had no idea where it was going. It was just fun. It was just play, you know, a child playing. You know, there's no sort of structure or reasoning. It's just fun. You just enjoy it. And as you grow up, you have to put everything mentally into categories and boxes and justify it all. But essentially, underlying it is just play. And I think my approach allows you to get back to that pure core, the reason you started it in the first place. For whatever, you know, we don't choose what our interests are. We're just exposed to things in the world. Certain people are drawn to certain things. You know, some kids may like, I don't know, football or this activity or that activity. For me, it was art. I was drawn towards that. That is, like, to me, you're in a compass. You follow that. You've got to try and listen to yourself. But yeah, it was play. So sometimes that can get spoiled by the sort of trying to make it into a job. It can work, but you know, but I think what was the other point I wanted to? With the skill thing. I thought when I was at school that there was a secret, you know, the way to do it. And if I knew that secret, if I could just figure out how these people did it, it would all open up. It would be like, you know, you just do these things, like you said, very tightly. Or just do this, and it'll all be magic. It'll all work. They know this secret, and I don't know this secret. I've got to find it. This was just as the internet was sort of getting started. It was incredibly difficult to find these little nuggets of information. And every time I found one, you know, find out about perspective or shading or something, I'd be like, you know, it was like I was finding a little piece to put into this puzzle. It was all coming together. But what I actually learned as I went along is lots of, you look at the people you admire. I won't follow people that are not doing something that I want to, like you look at the guys that impress you, your influences, like Geiger. I discovered Geiger in the college library that I was just talking about. One book, Geiger, I was blown away. It was this is amazing. This is incredible stuff. It was like a mad Michelangelo on scale. The Sistine Chapel. Geiger was doing huge things, intricate. He's creating whole worlds, and that just blew me away. But you study, right? How does he do that? I want to draw like that guy. So you try and do what he's doing and figure it out, break it down, look at his prints and try and think, what is he doing to create that effect? And you do this with lots of different artists, and along the route you realize that lots of people do lots of things in lots of different ways, and all these ways work. And if you follow, if you do this, you get this result. And so you build up all these different techniques and approaches and ways of doing things. But what you also learn along the way is, I can do this, and I'll get this result. But personally, that doesn't feel like a satisfying way to work. And that in that particular way, so you think, I liked that bit. I enjoyed working like that. And it got the results, but it wasn't for me. So then you try some other tools or some other media, and gradually you find your own way. You think, I'll do a bit of that, and I'll throw that in because I enjoyed that, and I'll do this, and you sort of create your own technique and approach to doing your own artwork. And this is all, this is still a work in progress for me, but you just find what resonates with you. Material-wise, technique-wise, everything. You're figuring yourself out. It's great.
It is really great. And what else also reminds me of something from another Jordan Peterson lecture? He's talking about rules and play, because you also use the term play. He talks about how in one of his classes or whatever, he picks a student out of the class and he's like, all right, let's play a game, okay? And the kid is like, okay. And so then Jordan goes, all right, your move. And then the kid is like, there weren't any rules set before. So it's like, lots of times rules get a bad reputation, or they get shit talked or something, because they can be frustrating, of course. But at the same time, it's like sometimes that is basically what you need before you can play jazz. That's what you need before you can pull things out of chaos, you need structure. I think, what was it, I follow all sorts of crazy stuff on the internet. But Bruce Lee, he said about focus, laser-like focus. He's quite a philosopher in his own right. I've got a book full of basically his philosophies. But the idea of focus, I think you need structure and discipline to get that focus. It's like you can just scatter yourself like light all over the place and get nowhere. It's like you do it. You've only got so much energy and attention and everything else, and I think you need to set a direction and kind of focus your own light. And when you do that, it's like the magnifying glass with the sun example. If you can focus all this energy that you're scattering all over the place in all these different directions and just make one thing work, you can kind of light fires, and fires can grow and become all sorts of forests on fire. Is that kind of, it's a tiny little, but it's all about concentrating your energy. And there's so many distractions nowadays that it's incredibly hard to do that, to have that discipline and focus, to just make something happen. You're obviously doing that with this podcast that you're doing. It's that's how it works, I think. But you do need structure. I love the Oriental philosophies, the minimalist Zen sort of. I love those sumi brush drawings where they just get this wild brush and some ink, and just like
it's minimal. You've got ink, paper, brush. It doesn't get much more basic than that, and they just do these incredibly sort of poetic, passionate mark making that they just it's great, and I love that. That's what I'm trying to do. Like I mentioned earlier, over the journey you're trying all these things, accumulating all these different like I've kind of reduced it a bit at the moment, but I've got acrylic paint, oil paint, that brushes, pencils everywhere. I'd just love to be able to go, right, the real simple, minimal, just have my ink, have my brush, have my paper, and just do it. I'm kind of getting there. At the moment, I'm just working in black ink, white ink, and any kind of way to apply that. A bit of charcoal as well. Pencils, things like that. But just trying to reduce so I can do more. It's like if you reduce the complexity down, you can do more with it. It's like you're not juggling as many balls, so you can do more with it. If you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. It's like if you've got tons of things, it just goes nowhere. Yeah, you've got to focus.
It does, yeah. It takes an inordinate amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, Mr. Wright, what is beauty in your opinion?
What is beauty? Right. Notes again. I had a thing. I thought, what am I going to say to this?
I like it.
Yeah. Well, what have I written here? Beauty attracts, ugliness repels. So beauty has value, is value, and beauty is power. There's a saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which suggests that it's a subjective thing, that each individual sees beauty in what they see beauty in. And then there's the counterpoint, love is blind. So there's sort of the kind of biological, evolutionary underlying purposes. You've got aesthetics. Nature has patterns and symmetry. There's the golden mean. I believe the golden mean's the most familiar and recurring pattern throughout nature. So because it's so familiar, we associate it with it. Just that particular set of proportions seem familiar, so they seem right. So when you set a piece of artwork according to the golden mean, it just kind of like it works because we're familiar with this pattern being repeated throughout nature in various different ways. That particular proportion. So that suggests that there is an underlying natural standard of beauty. It's not entirely subjective. It's kind of a bit of both going off there. Then there's context. So something that on the surface might be deemed ugly or repulsive, if you were to take that context away from it, the subject, whatever it is, a dead thing or whatever, and say look at it under a microscope, bring it closer, there's usually some underlying amazing patterns and beauty in even the most horrible things. And if you were to take the context and show just the pure raw underlying structure of things to people, they may say that's beautiful. So that you've got kind of those two. These are my thoughts on beauty. I think there is an objective beauty, and and it's also subjective as well. It kind of blows your mind a bit, doesn't it, when you start thinking about definitions? But we as humans have labelled things as beautiful. There are people that try and define what's beautiful, like fashion trends and things like that, which shift and cycle over the years. So people have ideas and impose those ideas, but in addition to that, there is an underlying, what attracts and repels. You know, you're drawn to certain things and repelled from other things. And what do you think?
No, I think what you're musing about is great. I personally have a problem with the quote of "beauty is in the eye of the beholder." I don't know who coined that quote or whatever, but so my problem with it is that it talks about where beauty is, so it's in the eye of the beholder. Like, I understand that what it's trying to say is that it depends on who is looking at the alleged beautiful thing, but so then the problem with that for me is that then the quote then also insinuates that the person gazing at the beautiful thing knows what already must know what is beauty in order to be able to determine something beautiful. So, you know, I mean, not that term like beauty or art or whatever it is, not or illustration or anything, not that terms necessarily strictly require like a two-phrase definition in order for a person to know what it is.
Yeah.
But so I guess my real problem with the quote is that it doesn't say what beauty is. It says where it is. You know, by saying that it depends.
I take your point. Yeah. It doesn't actually answer the question.
But I mean, it talks to an aspect of it in the sense that, like what you were saying, the context part, because perhaps the person viewing at whatever it is the context, in a way. You know, because an individual, you know, there's things that we're aware of and things that we're not aware of. You know, like we have our memories, we have our ideas, we have our influences, like things that arguably we are aware of how they got there in a way. And there's the things that we don't know how they got there, like the evolutionary behaviors and that kind of stuff.
Well, that's kind of what I was touching on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying that the context of the person's location and time in history is like that specific part is there, but also each person is also, and that's also from Jordan Peterson. I mean, not that he originated the idea, but I heard it from him, that each person is the result of just everything. Each person is the result of all history. It's like the embodiment, each individual, like you, I, everyone, you know, whatever. It's like we are actually the result of all of not just human history, just all history. It's like everything had to happen, everything had to one event follow after another in order to result in each individual person, not just like each day, but like in each moment. You see what I'm saying? So it's like in that sense, the idea of beauty that you were talking about in the sense like the evolutionary type stuff, for example, like that idea of beauty is also there within us. Like it's like they're both there. Like what might be the individualized idea and like the cross-cultural, cross-everything idea of beauty that is like gonna blow your brains, you know.
Yeah, it is mind-blowing. I follow Jordan Peterson. I like his stuff. I think a lot of his work is Carl Gustav Jung.
Yes.
He's inspired by.
He likes him a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. The collective unconscious, things like that. But I mean, I like the idea. I think it's more than an idea. I think it's more or less fact that we're all interconnected in some way. It's like you know, we're not sort of human beings plunked on a planet. You know, separate entities to everything that happens around us. We're a part of it. We come out of it. Like Alan Watts used to say, exactly that. You come out of it. You're a part of it. You know when you look at the cycles in the world, just the water cycle. It evaporates, becomes atmosphere, falls back down, goes back in. Every single thing has these cycles. So it's almost there's different levels to this. It's deep stuff. But yeah, it's like, yeah, we're all, you know, I'm sure we serve a purpose because we're here. If we weren't,
absolutely,
we had no purpose, we wouldn't be here. That's not to say, you know, go on the sort of, the purpose is anything grandiose or whatever. There's various different religious approaches to that, but we're here, so that in itself is meaning.
yes,
Of a purpose, just like, but everything is recycled. You know, nothing is wasted. No energy is ever lost. It just transforms from one thing to another. So in that context, the stuff of which we're made is universal, and if time is infinite.
Yes.
So in that sense, we're all interconnected. Everything is interconnected. It's a sort of shifting of energy that is constant. So we're a part of a whole, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then when you go down the evolutionary side of it, you know, you've got we're basically, it seems to me that it's a pretty brutal place, this world, and we've done a good job. Humanity's done a very good job of getting rid of all the nasty things to a degree, or at least softening them, so we can live in a comfortable world devoid of all the things that in the past have upset us, you know, created fear and anxiety and all the rest of it. But yeah, ultimately, I think I think we're in sort of like a giant genetic coliseum. You know, everything is fighting everything else for, like, even the trees that are reaching above the other trees to get the most light become the strongest. It's reflected in everything, and it's quite disturbing. But it's the natural selection, basically. You know, in the context of your environment, if all the food in your area is on tall trees and you are a tall guy, you've got advantage over the short guys, so you'll do better, you'll reproduce, more tall people, the little guys will all gradually die off, and you'll end up, you know, that's natural selection. That's kind of the genetic coliseum, things getting refined and nature refining itself, which is interesting in that grand context. If it's like on a massive level, this thing of which we're a part is making itself better and better and better and better. And we're all a part of that. But the process through which it's doing that is incredibly harsh and brutal. And we're all kind of in that meat grinder trying to make the best of it.
Indeed.
But even in individuals, there's that process going off in us all. I don't know about you, but it's like I feel like, you know, you've got potential. You're capable of doing things, and I want to know what I'm capable of doing. I want to explore that, and I want to push that as far as I can. I want to be as good as I can possibly be. I mean, nature. I don't think. I think things like fairness and equality are brilliant human ideals, but they're not reflected in the underlying nature. Nature's not fair. Things are not ideal. We're all dealt this genetic hand of cards. Some people are more fortunate than others, which is inequality. You just dealt the cards you dealt, and you play them as best you can. I think that's the best thing you can do. It's like you can be whatever you've got in your hand, whatever the best move is on the chessboard. That's what you've got to try and do. Never mind what everybody else is doing. Just kind of try and hone yourself and become as good as you can possibly be with what you've got, with what means you're available. And I went off on one there, but that's kind of my view on kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I like it, and I think it's an excellent place also to end because Mr. Wright, we have reached the 58-minute mark. So I think it's a time to start closing it out here. Time goes by.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
When you talk about certain things. Okay.
I could go on about this stuff forever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're very deep subjects. I mean, deep in the sense, in a way. I mean, like physically, like a well that it's like, oh, it's like who knows where the bottom is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody does.
Yeah. No, we really don't. Okay, but no, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, because I think that's a really good place to end the episode. Really, really good words. So, please tell our viewers and listeners what you're up to lately, where your work can be found, what project you're excited about, something that you're working on. You have anything you want to talk about?
Well, you can find me at my website, www.davidmichaelwright.com, and more with the social media. I'm on Instagram more than anywhere else. I think if you want to see the day-to-day stuff, the work in progress, things like that, whatever I'm up to, I generally post most frequently on Instagram, and then everything gets distributed elsewhere on the internet from there. So that's kind of the source.
Okay.
What am I up to? I'm just painting. I'm painting a weird skull with a spiral eye. Crazy.
Is that your current work in progress?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, let's see if I can. That's
that
what
looks
I've got.
awesome. Yeah.
It's getting there slowly. Yeah, a couple of commissions on that. Just rolling along, doing my thing.
All right. Well, that's awesome. The links for that are going to be for both your website and the Instagram. Your Instagram are going to be in the show notes. So thank you, David, for joining me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your words and your thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Feel free to let David and I know what you think of this conversation in the comments section. Also, I invite you to subscribe to my audiovisual channel because more of these conversations are coming. I also invite you to like this video and share it with any and all pertinent individuals. If you want to support David, myself, this podcast, or all three, the links will be in the show notes. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.